You can watch Brighton versus Arsenal and Watford versus Chelsea on Now TV for just €10. So what's stopping you? Going shopping again? You're already on first name basis with the sales assistant. A family party? Your Aunt Mary has seen you 4 times this week already. Don't let anything get in your way. To treat yourself to a Now TV Sky Sports Day Pass and watch the games that matter to you for just €10, search Now TV Football today. Content streamed via internet. Full terms at nowtv.com.
Simply Financial with Christopher Calandra, Certified Financial Planner, is an innovative, comprehensive, informative, and cutting-edge podcast that discusses financial topics ranging from personal finance, economics, politics, and personal growth. Simply Financial will cover intriguing and thought-provoking questions so that the listener can simply increase their financial IQ.
Welcome to episode number 52 of season 2 of the Simply Financial podcast. This is our final episode of the year. I'm your host, Christopher Calandra. On today's episode, I have guest Philo. She is an online marketer, entrepreneur, and the founder of an online business called Mirror Your Brilliance, which focuses on video. We're going to learn more about that today. She's also a world traveler, and having a couple of conversations with her leading up to this interview, she is fascinating, and I'm really anxious to cover a number of topics with her today. Kayla, thanks for joining me this afternoon.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Christopher. I'm honored. I appreciate it very much.
Yeah. So let's start kind of open-ended. What are you up to these days? You seem to be busy.
Yes, well, I am. And I think if you talk to anybody building a business online, they would say they are busy. Yes, I have the Mirror Your Brilliance on video brand is about a year old, and we're coming into our kind of growth year, coming up in 2019. Really excited about that. So I'm working a lot with consultants and coaches who are the face of their business, helping them leverage smartphone video. And at the same time, I maintain what I call a slow travel lifestyle, where I currently am living in Mexico most of the year. We stay in one place 3 to 6 months and kind of move around as a way to have sort of a travel lifestyle, but without all the hectic, distractions of travel. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we had talked about that in the lead up to the interview. So your lifestyle is that you travel, but not one place for a week and then a weekend here. You tend to stay in place for several months at a time and then venture out from there, but it's not a hectic travel lifestyle. Is that a good way to describe it?
That is a very good way to describe it. I'm going to use that later because I've had a hard time sometimes, describing it because it's kind of I think it's happening more often than people think. But, so I'm in my mid-50s and knew that I didn't want, quote, the conventional retirement, and that for some, things that happened a few years ago, that really wasn't an option anyway. I knew I was going to need to be working and doing some catch-up on my revenue and my sort of building up my savings. So one way of doing that to me was to minimize my cost of living while I started this business, and so that kind of led me to Mexico, that and some personal reasons because I'm now with a Mexican man. But I discovered, looking at cost of living, I could live in Mexico City, for example, kind of like a queen almost, but still not go broke trying to start my business. Whereas before I was in Northern California and definitely,
I think Northern California is a tad bit higher on the lifestyle cost index.
Just a little bit, and I love it there. I mean, it's probably, it's one of my very favorite places on earth. Northern California is magic. And I mean, look at, what comes out of there business-wise. It's just kind of this incredible epicenter. But it was, for my purposes, and plus some life goals I had, which was to really minimize and travel more. So about 3 years ago I did. I sold or donated everything I owned and that wouldn't fit my car. And I spent the first year, I did some working online, kind of as a freelancer. And then the second year I started an online business, which I pivoted the idea of about a year into that, and now I'm working on the video one, and very excited about the potential for that.
So before we get into the meat of the couple of questions I want to ask you today, help me out with this. You mentioned this retirement lifestyle that you're in. I think you described your early 50s.
Mm-hmm.
So where did this idea originate from? You also mentioned that your husband is Mexican man. I think that's how you described it. So where did this idea originate from? Was it his idea? Is it something that you and he came up with together? Or is this something that you had long thought about? Can you walk me through that a bit? I'm very curious.
Sure. Yes. Well, was not his idea. I've always had a case of wanderlust, and I was married before for a long time to a great man. We had 2 wonderful children. He's a great dad. And that was kind of like, life part one. And then as my daughter was getting ready to graduate, we realized we weren't all talking about the same things as what life part two might look like. Right. And so we ended up splitting up, and that's grossly simplifying lots of things, but that's what happened.
Sure. Enough of this podcast.
Exactly. Yeah. And so, but one of the things that I always knew, I wanted to leave the nest really empty. I knew I was not going to be a person who, was going to sit around and miss my kids. I even when they were little, I knew that. And so I thought, wow, now that I can kind of my life it's a little scary because I'm not sure what's next, but it's also kind of invigorating, and I can pretty much set up the biggest field trip I could think of. So what I started to do, but this is kind of the practical piece of that, which some of your listeners might be interested in. You have to, unless you're independently wealthy, which I'm not, you have to think of a way to be making money while you're traveling, right? And so previously I was a video producer, and part of that I know how to edit videos really well. So I started to transition more of my clients to being virtual, to where we would go back and forth on a project, a editing project, Dropbox, and they would, we'd just do all the work virtually so that I could create what is called a location-independent business.
Right.
So that, depending upon what your line of work and your expertise is, if you can start to transition pieces of that to being virtual, that's going to help the transition. But overall, at the same time, I had this sense of wanderlust and not wanting to be tied to one place anymore. If you look at the statistics now, we're all living much longer, of course, and the divorce rate for people over 50 is over 50% now, and women are more and more initiating that than before. There's another study that shows the two goals of a lot of women are they're concerned about their savings, and they also want to travel more. So those seem like they're competing, but I think what we're seeing is midlife people in general and women now are looking at creative ways to travel more, but also still save money for retirement. Yeah, absolutely. And also,
I think that's so well said. That's really a credit to you. It's a wonderful thought. I cut you off. What were you going to say?
No, thank you. I was going to just saying that I was wondering if that's kind of what you're seeing is people starting to look at retirement in it. Like what I guess I was going to say is what is retirement? I don't even know, to be honest, what the word is anymore, because retirement, the word doesn't describe what I'm trying to create for myself, and I don't think it describes what a lot of people are trying to create for themselves. So I don't know, with your clients, are you seeing different terminology around it, or because the days of, for most of us, the days of quitting working one day and just being on the golf course every day, I don't, some people may end up doing that, but I think that that's, if we're going to live to be 90, 100 years old even, and still be pretty vital into our 90s, that's a long time.
Yeah. So I think there's not really a good term that captures what you're talking about. There's still just the generic retirement, which a lot of people do associate with generations ago. You retire from the factory and you're done working and you sit around watching TV and maybe play cards once a night, once a week or something like that. And I think the terminology hasn't really caught up to the broadness of what actually retirement means for people today, whether it's travel, more philanthropic. some people will leave like a high-pressure corporate job, and they'll still be working, but it's a low-pressure, more easygoing thing. They still want to use their skills, meet people, get out of the house, but they're not really chasing the dollar the same way they might have in the past. Still other people, they stop working full-time, but they work part-time, whether it's consulting or starting a business that would allow you to work remotely. So there's all different shapes and sizes, but there's not really good terms to capture what's going on. And I know last night I was with a friend of mine, a business associate, and we talked about exactly this topic, because in a few years I'll be where you are. I'm 48 now, and I'll be an empty nester once my son, who's 13, goes off to college. My daughter's already in college, being the older of the two. And, you know, my wife Joelle and I talk a lot about what we would like, and the idea of purely retiring, especially because I, like lots of Americans, are not in a physically demanding job, and there's a smaller percentage of Americans that are in physically demanding jobs compared to generations in the past. So you could continue working. I mean, I'm a financial planner. I mean, you could probably do it till you're 75, 80, as long as your mental acuity remains intact. So reinventing what retirement is what I spend a lot of time talking to clients about, not just where they want to live and how they're going to organize their money, but what do they want to do with their time. It's a very good topic. So I didn't think we were going to go there, but that's a fascinating discussion on what retirement means today. I probably should do an episode just focused on that. So you've built your business, Kayla, on the notion that online video marketing is important. Can you talk to me and the listeners about how strong this trend is for entrepreneurs to use online videos?
Sure, absolutely. Well, it is very strong, and there's a couple of reasons for that. As humans, we are drawn to motion, and when you add faces to that and you add words to that, we are mesmerized, basically, relative to a static text post, for example. And so we tend to spend more time with video content online. Facebook knows this, and Google knows this. Google owns YouTube. And so if we're spending more time with content online, then we're spending more time on those platforms, right? And they like that. And the reason they like that is because then they can show advertisers, or in Facebook's case, they are the advertiser. They can create income around that by the way they price their ads. So the platform becomes more valuable the more time people are spending on it, and with more video means more time people are spending on the platform. So Google, for example, also will prioritize, if someone's doing a search query, they'll prioritize a return, say a website that has video on it over one that does not. So do you have a question?
So entrepreneurs, so I consider myself an entrepreneur. I'm a small business owner, and I've spent the vast majority of my career as an entrepreneurial small business person. I'm in the financial planning field, but lots of our clients either own a small business, involved in a small business, or maybe work for a small business. Why should they consider increasing or to begin using online videos? Why is that important in today's highly competitive marketplace?
Well, it's the last three words you used are kind of the key. It is highly competitive, especially online. And if you are the face of your business and you are in a field where there's lots of people doing the same sorts of tasks, or offering the same sorts of services that you do, what's the most important thing is to differentiate yourself, right? Yeah. And what's the fastest way to do that? Except, besides having coffee with somebody, the fastest, most high-touch way to do that is with the video, and because they get a sense of who you are, why you do what you do, and sort of if you're being authentic on video, which I coach my clients to that, and most non-actor people are by default being authentic on video because it's new to them and they don't know how to act. And that's actually perfect because you're getting like it helps your sales process in the know, like,